Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Urdu Seekhiye. This is part 3, the final part of the video series introducing the Urdu alphabet. The first letter in part 3 is toy. Toy. Like swad and zwad, the words that begin with toy are of Arabic origin, which might help you to determine which T-sounding letter to use. Our first word with toy is tota. Tota, which means parakeet. Next we have talib ilm. Talib ilm, which means student. I am a lifelong talib ilm. Just so you know, the word ilm alone means knowledge. A beautiful word in any language. And we'll encounter this word again a bit later. Our final word starting with toy is tara. Tara. Tara means way or manner. Similar to toy, we've got zoy next. Like toy, it's also used for words of Arabic origin, so it's a less popular Z-sounding letter. I could only think of 2 words beginning with zoy that you might come across. First is zulm. Zulm, which means injustice. And the other word is zahir. Zahir, which means obvious. And of course, these are not beginner words, so it's safe to say that you won't encounter words that begin with zoy. At least not in the beginning. But you may come across words that have zoy in the middle or at the end. Let's move on to yet another challenging letter. Ain. Ain. In Arabic, ain has a guttural sound. It comes from the throat. But in Urdu, I've heard it different ways. I've heard it just say plain old ain. It's like saying pain without the P. Ain. So in Urdu, words that begin with ain are pronounced as if they began with alif. So you'll also have to train yourself to distinguish the difference. Here we're representing ain with an apostrophe. So our first word beginning with ain is ilm. Ilm. If you recall, earlier I said that ilm meant knowledge. Our second word is umar. Umar. Umar means age. And our last word is aurat. Aurat. Aurat means woman. So if you remember, the words that I covered when I introduced the first letter of the alphabet, alif, those words ranged in sound. So we had ab, ulta, and iskul. Similarly, with ain, we have ilm, umar, and aurat. This is the case with several other letters as well, so you'll have to familiarize yourself with the spelling of these words. Our next letter, ghain, is written like ain, but with a dot on top of it. It also has a guttural sound, and when saying the letter alone, you can hear the guttural sound. But when saying the words that begin with ghain, the guttural sound isn't so much. So our first word, starting with ghain, is giza. Giza. And that means diet or food. Our second word is gussa. Gussa. And gussa means anger. Final word is garib. Garib. Garib means poor. Again, giza and garib might be words that you don't hear as often, but they're good words to know. The fact that these words don't have a guttural sound, the sound that's produced in the throat, kind of works to our disadvantage because it'll make it difficult to distinguish between the other letter that has the G sound, Gough. So rein and Gough produce the same G sound, which we'll come across in just a bit. Our next letter is an easy one. There is only one letter with the F sound, and that's fe. Fe. Our first word is fudge. Fudge, meaning army. Our second word is fikr. Fikr. Fikr means worry. Final word is farig. Farig. Farig means free or leisure. You may not be able to hear it, but farig ends with the letter rein, the letter that we just covered. The next letter is written in the same way as fe, but it has 2 dots above it and is pronounced Gough. Gough. If you watch the video that introduces all the Urdu letters, then you'll know that this sound begins in the throat. As with most of the letters that have the guttural sound, when used in a word, it loses that guttural effect. So even though Gough begins in the throat, our first word, Qismat, doesn't have a guttural sound. Qismat means fate. Second word, Qimmat. Qimmat. And Qimmat means cost. And final word is qarib. Qarib. And qarib means close. So our next letter also has the K sound. It's called Qaf. Qaf. But it doesn't originate in the throat. So it's Gough. 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 And with Gough starts the word gub. Gub, which means when. Then we have kitab. Kitab, which means book. And finally, we have kuch. Kuch. Kuch means some or something. So, kab, kismat, kitab, qimat, qarib, and kuch all have that same K sound. So you'll just need to be extra attentive when learning how to spell them. Written like Gough, next we have Gough. Gough. With which begins the word ghar. Ghar, meaning home. Next, gosht. Gosht. So while the T at the end isn't so prominent, there is a T at the end. It's gosht. And it means meat. Finally, we have garmi. Garmi. Garmi means warmth or summer. So you may also have a bit of trouble between Gough and rein. So be mindful of that. Moving along, we have lam. Lam. So our first word beginning with lam is Lekin. Lekin. Lekin means but. As in, I was going to go, but I changed my mind. Next we have likhna. Likhna. Likhna means to write. So if I just wanted to say write, it'd be lik. But with that na, it becomes to write. Likhna. And finally, we have log. Log. Log means people. Next, we have the only letter that makes the sound, the M sound, and it's called meme. Meme. Our first word starting with meme is Muslim. Muslim, which is what the people who follow Islam are called. They're called Muslims. Second word is madad. Madad. And it's a great word. It means help. Our final word is mubarak. 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 And it means congratulations. Next, we have noon. Noon. With which begins the word naan. Naan. This is a type of bread. And now that Indian food has become popular everywhere, I'd be surprised if you haven't tried naan before. And if you haven't, you're missing out. I love naan. Next, we have nahi. Nahi, which means no. Another good word to know. Finally, we have nila. Nila. And that's the color blue. The letter noon is often nasalized when it's the last letter of a word. And when that happens, the noon is called noon gunna. Noon gunna. Some words that end with noon gunna are huh. Huh. Which means yes. Next we have ma. Ma. Which means mother. And finally we have me. Me. Which could mean in or I. So in our first dialogue, we had the sentence मैं Houston से हूँ. That meant I am from Houston. But if I wanted to say I am in Houston, I would say मैं Houston में हूँ. मैं Houston में हूँ. In Urdu, they're spelled and sound the same. So we have हाँ, ma, and मैं. It's very subtle, but can you hear the nasal sound at the end of each word? If not, don't worry. You will, with time. Another thing about nun gunna is that when it appears in the middle of a word, so when that nasal N appears in the middle of the word, it does have a dot above it. For example, the word patang, which means kite. And then we have ankh. Ankh, which means eye. And one more word, kasi. Kasi, which means cough. Next letter is vow. Vow. Our first letter with vowel is vahan. Vahan. It means there. And can you guess the letter that it ends with? Vahan. It ends in nun gunna, that nasal N sound. Next word, vapis. Vapis, meaning again. And the final word is vakt. Vakt. And vakt means time. Now we have choti hai. Choti hai. Choti means little, so it's little hai. So we'll have to distinguish between choti hai and badi hai because they make the same H sound. And you might have guessed that badi means big. So we've got small hai and big hai. Our first word, starting with choti hai, is hat. Hat. Hat means hand. Next we have har. Har, which you might recall means every. So roz means day, and if I say har roz, then it means every day. And finally, we have himmat. Himmat, which is not an easy word, but it means courage. Himmat. Choti hai is often used in words where it serves as a silent letter. Every time a word ends in choti hai, you should pronounce it as if it were ending in aleph. In our vocabulary lesson, we came across the word parinda, which means bird, and it ends with choti hai. So our first word that ends in choti hai is bacha. Bacha. And it means child, more specifically, boy. Next word is irada. Irada. And irada means intention. Our final word is aista. Aista. Aista means slow. So it's actually written ahista, but it's said aista. So basically, any word that ends in choti hai, we'll just have to memorize the spelling. I too struggle with those words. This is also where the Anki vocabulary cards will come in handy. Next, we have yet another letter that makes the h sound. It's called do chashmi hai. The good news is, not many words begin with do chashmi hai. The dictionary that I use has a dedicated spot for every letter, even those that don't have any words that begin with that letter. For example, re. But there's no section for do chashmi hai. So basically, do chashmi hai is mainly used to pronounce the aspirated sounds. For example, the following sounds are made using do chashmi hai. G in ghar, ch in che, p in pali, b in bhai, t in teak, and so on. Those are the aspirated consonant sounds produced by do chashmi hai. So let's keep moving. After do chashmi hai comes ye. Some texts differentiate between badi ye, which is big ye, and choti ye, little ye. Though they make the exact same sound, they are only different in how they are written, and of course, we'll discuss that in great detail in the video dedicated to ye. So our first word, beginning with ye, is yar. Yar. That's another way of saying dost, or friend. Then we have the word ye, which means this. Ye could also mean he, she, or it. And finally, we have yahan. And yahan means here. And did you notice anything about the word yahan? What letter does it end in? It ends with a nun gunna, the nasal N sound. That's it, guys. We have covered every single letter in the Urdu alphabet. Good job! So before we end this part in the alphabet series, I want to emphasize the value of this chart. This was taken from the amazing book, Teach Yourself Urdu, by David Matthews and Mohammad Qasim Dalvi. This is the chart that we'll be using in our transliteration. Since each letter has a corresponding Roman letter, basically a letter from the English alphabet, it'll be easier for you to spell that word in Urdu using this chart. You clearly saw the transliteration in this video and previous videos, but you'll also see them in our podcast transcripts. So make sure you take the time to understand this chart. Oh, and there's another valuable book that I've been using. It's called Urdu, An Essential Grammar by Ruth Leila Schmidt. It's been incredibly helpful in my Urdu learning journey. That does it for the Urdu alphabet. Now you should know the sounds that each letter produces, the name of each letter, and how to write it independently. In the next set of videos, we'll tackle short and long vowels using several of the letters we've already learned. And we're always happy to hear from you, so feel free to shoot us an email at urduseekhiye@gmail.com. Until next time, Khuda Hafiz.